Thanks for joining us here at Empowered Somatic Healing, where we simply adore anything and everything somatic and healing based. I want to tell you 2 stories today, and I promise that I will explain why I'm telling both of them by the end of the podcast. I recently did a fast, and I love fasting in various different forms, not just for the physical implications that can happen around healing, but because it is a sacred spiritual act for me. And I get so much out of fasting. It's one of the things that I do that keeps me connected to myself and to the universe. And in this recent fast, I did 10 days of low or no carb, followed by 4 days of a water fast. And I never go into any fast holding a specific intention. I just allow whatever it is that is meant to happen to unfold. And the intention that I hold is that I'm not in resistance to whatever it is that's unfolding. And this recent fast showed me places that I was working with the energy of fear. And 2 different things came out so clearly. And it was such a blessing to get to see them. One is that I can allow fear to prevent me from experiencing infinite possibility. And I want to explain an experience that I had during this fast that was such a clear example of this, that was really fun for me to get to witness during the experience. So there was something in QuickBooks that I needed to change for my company. And I talked to my accountant, and my accountant said that I needed to work directly with QuickBooks. And so I called. And I also got on chat. And while I was waiting on hold, I started engaging with a robot. And that didn't get me anywhere. So eventually, I got connected to a human via chat. And I started to explain to her what it was that I was needing. And then someone picked up the line that I'd been on hold. And so I told the woman who I was chatting with that I appreciated her time and that someone had picked up the phone. So I stopped chatting with her and starting engaging with the person via the phone. And spent an hour and a half on the phone with this individual who told me on repeat that there was 0 possibility that what I wanted could happen, which was really confusing to me because that wasn't my truth. And I said, but it's your company and it's your software and it should be really simple because what I'm asking for is not that complicated. And he would put me on hold. And then he would come back and say, oh, I asked this department or that department and it simply can't happen. I was like, what do you mean it can't happen? He said, it's impossible. It's impossible. Can't happen. And I noticed that as the time continued to tick by and he continued to tell me on repeat that what I wanted was impossible, that I began to get really agitated. And I said, well, there was a woman who was helping me via chat and she said that she had the answer for me. So can we connect with her? And he said, no, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean it's impossible? I said, she emailed me. And he said, did it come from this email? And I said, yeah. And he said, oh, well, that's not a real person. You'll never connect with a real person if you respond to that email. I was like, what do you mean? Why would the company email me saying that it's this person if there's really no person there? And he said, oh, it's just the way it is. It's impossible to get in connection with this woman. And I said, well, this is the woman's name. And he said, yeah, I know. I can see in your file. But it's impossible. I'm Stop saying the word impossible to me. But it was very much the energy that he was creating or co-creating the conversation with me from. And I had been sitting really solidly in the frequency of possibility. And so you can see that we were coming from two very different places. And it's like we were trying to have conversations that could never happen because I knew that there was a pathway and he knew that there was not a pathway. And we were both convinced that we were right. And as such, we were both right. He knew that it was impossible. And so after an hour and a half, I asked to speak to a manager. And he said, well, you can speak to a manager, but it's impossible for them to fix your problem. And I said, I don't care. I'd like to share some feedback about my experience. He said, fine. And he put me on hold again. And he would come back about every 5 minutes and tell me, I'm still waiting too. And eventually I said, I'm going to let you go. Because I noticed that the agitation that I was sitting in was increasing, what felt like exponentially. And I know myself really well. And I knew the volume of energy that was moving up my body. It was very much fight energy. I was stuck in a fight response. And I know myself well enough to know that there is a tipping point whenever it is that I am frustrated, of where I can go from being proud of myself to behaving in a way that I'm not going to be proud of. And I know what that feels like inside of my body. And everybody has a different sequence that leads them into a place where they're not proud of. And for me, I know that there's a body sensation. And the moment that I felt that body sensation, I knew that I was going to act in a way that I wasn't going to be proud of. And I was unwilling to do that. And so I said, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to hang up the phone now, even though I haven't spoken to a manager and we haven't resolved my issue. And now we're close to 2 hours on the phone. And so I hung up the phone. And I was shaky and I was angry. I was so mad. I was so mad. And it was dinner time and my kids were asking about dinner. I came downstairs. They were asking about dinner and they were talking about their day. And I realized I was still really agitated. And so I told my children, I know that I've been on the phone and that I haven't been able to be present with you. But I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go sit with myself. Because I also knew that I was still at that tipping point of acting in a way that I wasn't going to be proud of. And I certainly did not want to take the energy that I was so frustrated with in that conversation and take it out on my children who had done nothing wrong. I wasn't willing to do that. So I knew that they weren't going to like the fact that I was going to take 15 minutes and go sit by myself while they were waiting for dinner and waiting to talk about their day and waiting to engage with me and have my presence. But I also knew that if they got to choose between a mom who was regulated and grounded and a mom who was agitated and triggered, that they would pick the mom who was regulated. And so I took the space and I said, I'm going to go sit by myself for just a couple of moments and I'll be right back. And they said, okay. And meditation is something that is very common in my house. All of my children know that meditation is a core part of my self-care and psychic hygiene practice. And so I went into the room that I typically meditate in, and there was a water bubbler that was bubbling in the background. I love the sound of water. And so I sat with myself, and I felt the agitation. And I realized the reason that I was so agitated is because I had taken on someone else's energy. And what I'd taken on was the energy of impossible. And it wasn't mine. It was an introject. I was carrying it inside of my body, even though it wasn't my frequency. It was not my belief system. I believed that there was a possibility. And so as I felt the energy inside of my body, I could also feel it let go because it wasn't mine. And as soon as I could get present with it, and as soon as I could get quiet enough to feel it, it was in feeling it that it released. And as I felt the energy release out of my body, I remembered that anything is possible. I'm energy, you're energy, everything's just energy. And if everything's just energy, everything's possible. And so I sank into the sensation of possibility. And I allowed my nervous system and my physical body and my energetic body to come into alignment with possibility. And as that happened, I really opened myself up to the fact that there could be an option here, that my need could get met. Even if someone else was telling me that that wasn't true, that was his truth, it wasn't mine, and I didn't need to embody it. And within about 3 minutes, I got an email back from the woman who I had been chatting with. And when I had been on the phone with the gentleman who told me it was impossible for me to get in contact with her and she would never email me back because it was impossible, I had emailed her during that conversation. And more than an hour had gone by, but only 3 minutes since I sank into possibility. And she emailed me back. And I thought, possibility. I knew it was possible that she could email me back. I believed that. I knew that in my body, in my nervous system, in my energy body. And she said she was just following up to make sure that my questions had gotten answered. And I said, in fact, they have not. She said, would you like me to help you? I said, I would love that. And in less than 2 minutes, she fixed my problem. It was a very, very simple answer. She sent me an email with a couple of steps. I went through them. Worked perfectly. The thing that I was told was impossible was in fact very possible. And because I had held the frequency of possibility, it opened up possibility in my energy field and in my reality. And that which had been impossible became very possible. It occurred. It happened. And so obviously I thanked the woman very much and then really sat with myself as I was cooking dinner for my children, realizing that someone else's fear had become mine. I had allowed it to creep into my reality. And luckily, I hadn't allowed it to creep in for very long. And that sitting in the frequency of possibility opened up possibility in my reality. And fear closed down possibility. And so it was this really beautiful lesson because I was sitting with fear and the way that I engage with fear during my fast. And so it was this really beautiful, lived human experience in real time where I could see how fear would hold me back from possibility. This is a simple example, right? An accounting thing. And I believe wholeheartedly that the universe will show you in simple examples what's possible. And then your job is to know it so deeply that you can lean into that frequency of possibility outside of a simple experience. And so I really sat with possibility. And a couple days later, I had to go to the DMV for a new license. And if you've been to the DMV, you probably know that it's sometimes not the best experience. And so as we were going into the DMV, my husband also had to go to the DMV and get a new license. I thought, I believe in the possibility that this is going to be smooth and easy. We had a very, very small window to make this happen. And so we go in and there's almost no line. And within about 45 seconds of being in the building, a whole rush of people came in and got into line. And my husband and I went to a teller. This woman was helping us. She was lovely. And I went through my stuff, and then my husband started to engage with her about his stuff. And he needed to fill out another form. And she could have sent him back to the end of the line. And because we had such a short window of time, it would have meant that he likely wouldn't have gotten his license. And so I just held on to the frequency of possibility. And she said, when you fill out your form, just come stand over here and I'll take you next. So he filled out the form and he stood in line and he got to go next. And she said, I need this and this and this and this. And my husband said, I don't have that. And I said, I think you do. I think you do. Look in your folder. And he pulls out some things, and lo and behold, he did have what he needed. And so we go from the check-in area to the spot where we're actually going to get our license. And we're waiting in line there. And again, there's very few people. And I am so excited. I am so excited with the fact that there are very few people in line in front of us. I mean, it was like Christmas morning to me. I was super excited. I think I was probably the only person who was that excited to be sitting at the DMV. But it felt magical to me. And so when they called my number, I got excited and I went up and I was telling the individual who I was engaging with how excited I was that there was no line. And I was celebrating it because I believe that celebrations of things help us to become a frequency match for the things that we desire. And I really want you to think about it. When's the last time you really celebrated something? How good did it feel? How good does it feel to sit in the frequency of celebration, authentic celebration, true excitement, true gratitude for the experience that you're having? So I tell the individual who I'm engaging with how excited I am about how quickly it's going. And, there's multiple tellers who are behind the little glass windows. And a couple tellers down said, "Did somebody just curse us?" And I giggled. And they said, "We don't say the word slow or fast or the line's quick. We don't use those words here." And I kind of giggled. And I thought to myself, I do. I want to celebrate these kinds of things. I want to celebrate getting through a line quickly and being able to accomplish something in a time frame that feels like it could be impossible, but because I believed that it was possible, it was. I want to celebrate. And here was a whole bunch of people who were telling me that I shouldn't celebrate it. And I didn't listen. I kept celebrating it. And in one sense, I think that they got a little bit annoyed. Because they were telling me, shh, don't use that word. Don't use the word quiet. Don't use the word fast, because you'll jinx us. That's one truth. That's one story. But I believe the more that we celebrate the fact that this is going so smoothly and so quickly means that it could go smoothly and quickly for other people. Because I think that that's how energy works. And so I get my license, and then my husband gets called up. So I'm standing in line with him. And I continue to celebrate because I'm really excited. This is going really smoothly. And sometimes the DMV doesn't go that smoothly. But also, sometimes I go into the DMV thinking it's not going to go very smoothly. And, what I believe is what happens. And so I'm like, this is so exciting. We're getting through this so fast. And the woman who's helping my husband shakes her head and looks at me. It's like, stop saying that. I said, I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to be excited about life. I want to be excited about getting through lines quickly. I want to be excited about the DMV going smoothly. I want to be excited about life. I don't want to sit in fear that if I celebrate it, that somehow it'll be taken from me. That's not a frequency that I want to hold. That's not a truth that I want to hold. That sounds like a horrible story to me. I want to believe that if I celebrate things, that it invites more of that frequency into my life. I want to believe that when I get excited or I'm full of gratitude, that it's just going to invite more. And so I continue to celebrate. And I know that they thought that I was crazy. And they shook their heads like, what's wrong with you, lady? But I wasn't going to let someone else's fear that me celebrating something that was going so smoothly for me and for them was somehow going to make it go away. That's a story I'm not going to feed into or lean into. I believe that the more that we celebrate it, the more that it happens. The more ease, the more peace, the more freedom, the more expansion that I get to experience just because I'm willing to celebrate it. And I believe that when I celebrate the small things in life, and I celebrate a lot of small things in life, that it invites more of that frequency. It's like the universe gets the message. Oh, you liked that. I'll give you more. And so it's one of the ways that I lean in to possibility. I lean into celebrations. I lean into gratitude. I lean into excitement of life. You see, I get to pick. I could have gone to the DMV and stood there and been boring. Boop, 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 boop. I could have sat there, the cranky pants on, and I would have had one experience. Or I can go to the DMV and I can be so excited. The line is small, and I get to go quickly, and that everything is going smoothly and easily in my life. And that's going to give me a different experience. I'm going to sit in the DMV for the same amount of time. So I get to pick. Do I want to be excited that it's going smoothly? Or do I want to sit there and be cranky that I'm there? I'm going to sit there either way. And I'd rather sit there excited than I would sit there and be cranky pants. And it's such a small example. But it's such a metaphor for life, in my opinion. You're going to have life happen to you. I'm going to have life happen to me. And we get to pick the story that we tell. And I think the story that we tell about whatever it is that's happening in our life creates the meaning out of our human experience. If you've taken any courses with me, you know that I say that a lot. What story are you telling yourself? Because whatever story it is that you're telling yourself is going to elicit specific emotions. I could have sat there at the DMV and been cranky, been pissy that I was sitting, waiting, bleh, and it would have made me feel a specific way. Or I could sit there excited. And it's going to make me feel a specific way. And this is the spot that we get choice. How do you want to feel? And sometimes I hear people say, well, that's emotional or spiritual bypassing. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the stories that you tell create the feelings that you feel, create the meaning out of the human experience. Maybe you sitting there cranky is bypassing happiness. You are emotionally or spiritually bypassing the happiness that you could be experiencing. Why is that not a thing? It's bypassing the suffering. That's a thing. But bypassing the happy, that's not a thing. What's the story that we're telling there? And I'm not attached to the way that anyone else wants to live. I'm really not. I used to be. Man, I used to try and convince people that they wanted to feel differently. But the more that I sank into the way that I wanted to feel, the less emotionally attached I was to how other people wanted to feel. If you want to feel better, there's so many resources out there that will help you feel better, that will help you tell a different story, that will help you make a different meaning out of your life. It's okay if you don't want to access those resources. No one's forcing you. If you want to sit in suffering, okay, listen. No judgment. I've sat in suffering a whole bunch in my life. Those were important phases of my life. And I'm not about to tell someone else that they shouldn't sit in suffering for as long as they need to sit in suffering. But I know how I want to feel. And these two examples really helped solidify for me the choice that I get. I can either lean into fear or I can lean into possibility. And this is the thing that I think is really funny. You can't see or touch or taste fear. It requires you to believe in something that you cannot see. Or you can believe in possibility, which is going to require you to believe in something that you cannot see or touch or taste or feel. You get to pick. In both cases, it is asking you to believe in something that you cannot know is there. And you get to pick. There's no wrong choice. Do you want to pick fear? Or do you want to pick possibility? It's a choice. And we get to pick it. And it was one of the things that became so abundantly clear in my fasting. Is that I am the creator of my reality. I create with every thought, with every breath, with every movement, with every action. And I get to pick what I want to believe in. Fear, possibility. And I like the way that possibility feels more than I like the way that fear feels. And I like the way that I show up when I lean into possibility. And I like the way that I experience life when I lean into possibility. And so if I have to believe in something that I cannot see, in something that I cannot touch or taste or smell, I might as well believe in the one that makes me feel the way I want to feel. And I'm not saying that we should avoid being with the truth of different situations. I believe in finding the space where possibility and truth cross. But when I don't know the truth yet, I would rather sit in possibility and see what happens. Because I believe that that is a frequency that I want to create my life from. And I believe that the thoughts that I think, the belief systems that I have that run both consciously and subconsciously, are where I create my life from. And so I pick. And I'll pick possibility. And it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be times that as a human I get rattled. And I might slip into fear. But I just get better and better and better at recognizing when I slip into fear. And I get quicker and quicker and quicker at coming back out of fear into surrender, into possibility, into trust, into co-creating with the universe. And I wanted to share this with you in the event that there's a piece here that might resonate for you. Maybe you'll lean into the possibility that possibility has something to offer you. I really appreciate you being here with us, and I hope that you have a beautiful morning, day, evening, or night, wherever it is that this podcast is reaching you.